Live from Seattle, Washington, it's theCUBE, covering DockerCon 2016. Brought to you by Docker. Here's your host, John Furrier.
Okay, welcome back everyone. We are here live in Seattle, Washington for DockerCon 2016. This is SiliconANGLE, Media's theCUBE, our flagship program where we go out to the events and extract the signal from the noise. I'm John Furrier with my co-host Brian Gracely, cloud analyst, and our next guest is Mark Thiele, friend of theCUBE, prolific blogger, chief strategy officer at Apcera. Welcome to theCUBE, and
thanks.
Congratulations on your new role. You're now the chief strategy officer at Apcera, Derek's company. You guys are doing great. Give us an update. What's going on? Why the switch over? What excited you about Apcera? Why did you join this company?
Yeah, you know, I've been watching, some of you probably know this, but I've been watching this space for, well, since my time at VMware, right? I've been an early adopter, early thinker, whatever you want to call it, in the cloud and the hybrid space since at least 2008. All the way back to helping Oren Krieger with some product management stuff associated with the initial ideas behind VMware's cloud offering that they were trying to develop at the time. I joined Service Mesh with the idea of that the hybrid cloud and the use of any cloud and to be able to govern where your workloads were and to be able to centralize that kind of management was a likely opportunity going forward. A little too early to the game, but I still believe they had some of the right ideas. So over the last 5 years, I've continued to watch the space, and I've liked containers since I first really was introduced to containers after I tweeted about the fact that we needed a better way to run more like infrastructure, more like a lake rather than individual ponds or pillars of infrastructure. And somebody said, oh, you got to come talk to us. We're looking at this new thing and we think you might like it. And that's when I got introduced to Docker, and that was about 3 years ago, give or take. And ever since then, I've seen that really as the future of how we leverage infrastructure more effectively. And looking at what Apcera's been doing, they've been working on containers for years now. They've had their own container for about 3.5 or 4 years. And realistically, the reason we're here today at this event is because while there are many announcements today from different providers about running Docker in production, we've been running Docker in production at scale securely for 1.5 years or longer. And I would argue that we can do it better than anyone else on the market today.
And who's the competition for you guys? Docker
yeah,
itself,
it's hard to say. I mean, I think Docker is attempting to become the competition, but Docker is actually a great partner for a lot of different reasons. But I would say OpenShift, you know, maybe Apprenda, certainly Cloud Foundry to some degree or competition. But there isn't anyone that does everything we do or does it the same way that we do, right? Whether it's the security through policy and governance, allowing you to run any workload anywhere and guarantee that it only does what it's supposed to do, only the right people have access. It doesn't use more processors than it needs. It only runs on specific cloud, or it can run on any cloud. It always scales when it gets to X percentage workload. Whatever it is, we can define the policy so that not only do you have complete governance and security, but you can audit against it and know exactly whether your SOX environment is
What's the key learning that you guys had on the scale and security for Docker containers? And give an example, or share some numbers if you have them, of the kind of implementations you have, and you know, what's the secret to do that, and what have you learned?
Yeah, I mean, our customers first came in looking at us for not just running Docker securely at scale or containers at scale, but also for looking at how they could manage legacy workloads, how they could modernize legacy workloads, et cetera, and or how they could better manage in a hybrid environment. But what they found after implementation is that taking not just modern workloads designed specifically for the cloud based on containers and expanding them using our product, but they're using our product to take legacy workloads, modernize them, and run them as if they are modern workloads. So they're encapsulating them, getting better security than they had when they left them in the original format in the data center, and running them on any cloud with the complete security and auditability that you would expect.
Yeah, and is that the biggest change in the sort of platform market? I know people that are in the market don't love the name PaaS, they want to, whatever, but more and more I'm hearing it's not just the 12-factor apps, it's not just, it's, you know, it's legacy services got to get worked in. I mean, like to me that's the biggest change, and that had to be some sort of architectural change because the early platforms were all about 12-factor and containers, and like what's going on in that? You know, why is that evolution happening?
Well, I think the evolution is happening because of the realization that we oftentimes make assumptions in the market about what you can or can't do with specific technologies. Oh, that app shouldn't be in the cloud. Why shouldn't that app be in the cloud? Well, because it's a well-trended app, we understand it, we have infrastructure for it, and it costs too much to convert it and put it in the cloud. Yeah. So we won't gain the benefit back monetarily from putting it in the cloud, and there's not enough business driver to have it in the cloud to make the move. Well, what if you change that dynamic? What if you take it from weeks or months of refactoring to put it in one cloud environment to taking it to minutes or maybe hours to being able to run it on any cloud? All of a sudden you're completely changing the paradigm for why you would want to modernize an app and put it into the cloud, right? And so the more companies can take advantage of taking 30 or 40% of their legacy workload environments, whether it's WebSphere or JBoss or any of those types of environments, the more flexibility they have to get away from firefighting on a daily basis. So not only is there an opportunity to save money, to leverage existing infrastructure a little bit longer, whether it's their vSphere implementation or whatever it is, to be able to utilize that for a longer period of time, not have to change skill sets overnight, et cetera. But it also gives them the flexibility to be able to say, I can provide redundancy and availability for this app at same or lower cost than I was delivering it before, better than I ever could have thought, with better security.
In your role in strategy, you had a blog a couple months ago, kind of talked about a prediction, a big 400 million new servers over the next few years. What does that mean strategically? What do I have to think about from a platform perspective, from a technology? I mean, that's an enormous number. Like, how are you guys thinking about being able to cope with that, and where does your technology fit?
Well, you know, it's a great question. It's the kind of question that I could only hope that you would have asked if I'd have written the questions ahead of time. The real purpose for that blog when I wrote it was to try to get people thinking about the fact that they can't just throw more at the existing problem. They can't throw more scripts, they can't throw more bodies, they can't throw more hardware. They have to think of a new way of deploying and managing applications. How the application's lifecycled, how it's secured, how it's distributed, where it actually scales, where its data is stored, where it's protected, how it's protected, is it encrypted? Can it scale from 1,000 to 1,000,000 and back to 1,000 in minutes, right? If you think about the potential impacts, whether it's AI or ML or machine learning or artificial intelligence, cognitive compute like IBM likes to call it, big data or IoT, all of these things potentially have the opportunity of really switching how IT is viewed today. If you look at the typical picture of what IT is viewed as today, is the average company that's not a eBay or a PayPal or something like that has about 85% of their focus from an IT perspective on internal apps, and about 15% on their company's web page. Maybe they sell some things from the web page or whatever, but it's very little external focus. Yeah. Think about how that's going to change as we do more of what Google's trying to do with Nest and get actually integrated more with the external customer. All of a sudden now it's going to change from being 10 or 15% external to being 10 or 15% focused internal, and the rest of the impact on your load, on your demand, will be focused external. So now you're not worried about scaling from 10 to 20 to 30 to 100 users, you're worried about scaling from 10,000 to 10 million to 100 million users. Your ability to govern, to be able to provide security and comfort to the customers that are using that in that environment, but also to leverage the data from that, to be able to deploy quickly, to apply fixes quickly, takes a whole new level of strategy over what we've been doing in the past. I mean, the basic presumption is that every company needs to get to the point where they can manage deployment and distribution at scale, just like a Facebook or a Google would.
Mark, I got to ask on that point, I want to just drill down on the ops side of it. Obviously, you go back 8 years when we were first gen, but cloud, it was a true DevOps. Chef, Puppet, all that stuff was going on. You had to stand up your own stuff. Right. Amazon was there, it was getting better and better every year. Now DevOps has gone mainstream, which basically means that the developer community in the enterprise will be feeding on Docker. Makes total sense, I get that. Ops and DevOps kind of were at odds. No ops, no, can't approve that. We need security, compliance, jump through hoops. It's like going to the airport, not being unclear, TSA. What is the change in ops today, IT ops, that's happening that no one's really talking about, this little elephant in the room out there called IT ops that's under transformation. What's changing? What are you seeing as trend? Because it all's got to run the same. No one's going to reduce their SLAs, we heard from the COO from Docker, so no change to any kind of ops standards.
Right.
But yet, I'm going to have faster, agile.
Again, we make a lot of assumptions, and there's several points that I want to try to hit here. So first, I'll start with the assumption first. We make an assumption about what ops need to do based on what the capability of tools are today, right? If every time you deploy an app, every time you design an app, you have to have integration between the dev people and the ops people in defining a specific environment that works for that cloud, or not that cloud, but that application, then that requires the kind of dev or ops teams to deploy specific verticals, et cetera. Whether it's a vertical in a specific cloud or a vertical in your own data center, you have to design around that. That assumption goes away if dev doesn't have to worry about what infrastructure it's deployed on. It can just send a set of requirements with their recently factored containers off their Mac onto the network and say, go deploy this. And they don't care about where it gets deployed. They don't care about how it gets deployed. That's defined by the policy, it's defined by the governance in the tools you apply. The other thing, I mean that's what we offer, right? Is the ability to say, you can run it on any cloud, and you can define what the job needs, and that dictates where that job ends up. It doesn't have to require somebody twisting knobs to move it from one place to another, to add more RAM or to add more disk or to add bigger CPUs. It does it based on how you've defined the policy for that job. So the other thing is the misnomer about dev and ops. Dev doesn't give a crap about ops. And I'm not saying that to be negative, but they want a dev, and they want a dev and they want a release. What we really need is for ops to be able to say, we can incorporate the requirements of the business for compliance, for security, for latency, for customer satisfaction, for SLAs, for contracts, et cetera. We can manage that while we deploy your applications. You don't have to care. You design the applications, we deploy it wherever we need to deploy it based on policy to ensure that you get all those things from the application, all those protections that you need.
So I mean, to a certain extent, like the DevOps crowd likes to run around and say, well, you can't buy DevOps, you can't get DevOps.
That's
I mean,
true.
to a certain extent, that's what you guys have to do. You have to build ops, better ops, DevOps into your software in order for this stuff to work. I mean,
Agreed.
it's just hoping and praying that your culture will change, like,
well,
good luck, right?
And so,
it's got to be embedded in the technology somehow, right?
Exactly, and I've always said that there's no tool to buy to make you DevOps.
Yeah.
But there are tools, and I believe our tool is an excellent example of it. There are tools that you can buy that allow you to be more effective at doing DevOps, right? So if you think about the ability to centralize the function where you're not doing snowflake implementations every single time, that when there are a base set of policies and governance guidelines that get deployed with every app every time, that every time a job is put into production, it knows whether it's dev or whether it's production, and if it's in dev, there is no way for you to allow it accidentally to actually talk to something in production. You know, from our perspective, it's really centralizing the demand. If you think about what a DevOps team is supposed to be doing, is they're supposed to be, from a mind share perspective and a practice perspective, they're supposed to be pulling in all of the things that make a job legal for production and putting it into an automated process so that it doesn't have to go through this waterfall approach of, oh, the dev guy had it, then he sent it to the server admin manager, the server admin manager talks to the storage guy, and then they talk to the network guy, and then they talk to the firewall guy, and then you know, and that's obviously a pain in the ass. Right? So from our perspective, we see this as a great centralized capability to manage those requirements, maintain them, not have to worry about snowflaking every single activity you do.
Snowflaking, you mean every unique snowflake?
Every time you deploy every time you deploy an app, whether Brian did it or I did it or you did it, we do it slightly different.
Yeah, it's got to be ops as code.
Yeah.
That's right.
Every snowflake is different, great metaphor. The other metaphor of sports is the Warriors were a big hit here against Cleveland Cavaliers, and you can almost argue that the developers are the players and ops was the performance, and the Warriors just didn't deploy properly, did they?
They didn't.
They couldn't get the three-pointer.
They could have used Apcera maybe.
Yeah, Apcera was there.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, thanks for coming on theCUBE. I really appreciate your insight, and you're, been following your blog. Great, predictions you've called. You made some great calls. Also a great view of the future. but I'd like you to spend the next minute just to share with the audience why Apcera, why should they work with you guys, and why are you winning, and share the value proposition.
Yeah, we're winning because we have customers that are everything from the most legacy, 100-year-old type company, where they have divisions that are legacy as you would expect, and divisions that are all cloud native oriented. And they've found our product to be the product that they want to build on. They want to use to drive their business, both public business and internal business. But really from a product standpoint, why we're here at Docker, why this makes sense as an announcement opportunity for us, is that the public has made an assumption until right now effectively, that running Docker in production is something that can't be done. Docker is great for dev, Docker is great for this, but the developer does some Docker, and then they roll it to ops, and then ops wraps it in VMware or something else, and then deploys it, right? VMware has been a great solution for many years, but it doesn't make sense to take the capabilities of something like containers, wrap it in VMs, if you don't have to, right? So our ability to do that, deploy securely at scale, effectively, is really what is, and with the maturity of having done it for years, is really what is, in my mind, driving attention from our customers right now.
Mark Thiele, Chief Strategy Officer, Apcera. This is theCUBE, live in Seattle. I'm John Furrier with Brian Gracie. We'll be right back. You're watching theCUBE.